Imagine a general who fought over 100 battles across 3 different empires and never lost a single one. Not one. Not against the Persians, not against the Romans, not against the armies of Arabia. In an age when warfare meant standing face to face with your enemy, sword in hand, this man walked onto every battlefield knowing he would walk off victorious. History has produced conquerors. It has produced brilliant strategists, but it has produced very few men who could combine raw physical courage, tactical genius, and unshakable faith into one terrifying, unstoppable force of nature. His name was Khalid ibn al Walid, and this is his story. But here is what makes it truly remarkable. Before he became the greatest warrior Islam ever produced, he was one of its most dangerous enemies. Khalid was born into the aristocracy of Mecca, into the Bani Makhzum clan, the clan responsible for war. His father, al-Walid, was known among his people simply as the Unique. From the moment Khalid could walk, he was trained to ride horses, to break untamed colts, to throw lances and draw swords with precision. By his early teens, he was already the strongest wrestler among his peers. The boy he threw to the ground during one childhood match, snapping the young man's leg in the fall, was none other than Umar ibn al-Khattab, the same Umar who would one day become Khalid's most formidable rival, his harshest critic, and ultimately one of the few men Khalid would ever genuinely respect. But before any of that could happen, Khalid had a war to fight on the wrong side. For 15 years after the Prophet Muhammad received his first revelation, Khalid stood firmly against the new faith. His father stood against it. His cousin Abu Jahl, one of the most violent opponents of the Prophet, stood against it. And Khalid, loyal to his tribe, his culture, and his own pride, stood with them. And then came the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE, the engagement that would define Khalid forever, even in his years as an enemy. He placed 50 archers on a hill guarding the left flank and gave them one absolute order: do not leave your position. Not if we are winning, not if you see us losing. Stay. The battle began and the Muslims pushed hard. The Quraysh started to break, soldiers fled, the enemy camp lay open, and then the archers saw the spoils. Most of them left their hill. Khalid was watching. He had been leading the cavalry on the Quraysh right flank all morning, blocked every time he tried to advance by those archers on the hill. The moment he saw the hill empty, he moved. He wheeled his cavalry, swept wide around the battlefield, and struck the Muslim army in the rear at the exact moment his cousin Ikrimah hit them from the other side. The Muslims who had been winning were suddenly caught between two forces. The battle turned. The Prophet himself was wounded. 70 companions were killed. He had studied the battlefield, found the one weakness in a brilliant plan, and exploited it with devastating speed. Not for faith, but for his tribe. Yet even then, the genius was undeniable. After Uhud, something began shifting inside Khalid ibn al Walid. Not quickly. Deep truths rarely arrive with lightning. They arrive with a slow, uncomfortable clarity.
It is about something deeper. Khalid was beginning to understand that the man he had been fighting was not simply a skilled general. There was something about Muhammad, something that made his followers fight with a ferocity no other army possessed, that made a small band of believers hold their ground against forces many times their size, not out of blind aggression, but out of a faith so deep it removed the fear of death entirely. Khalid began to think seriously about Islam. In the spring of 629 CE, Khalid ibn al Walid made his decision. He packed his armor, his weapons, and his horse. He left Mecca in the middle of the night. On the road to Medina, he met 2 other prominent Quraysh leaders doing the exact same thing, Amr ibn al-As and Uthman ibn Talha, 3 of Mecca's finest warriors, traveling in the same direction for the same reason on the same night. None of them had known about the others. When they arrived and presented themselves before the Prophet, Khalid spoke first. He was 43 years old. The Prophet looked at him and smiled. Then he said something that Khalid would carry with him for the rest of his life. I have long hoped that your intelligence would lead you to nothing but good. 3 months after his conversion, Khalid went to war for the first time as a Muslim. The expedition was to Mutah in modern-day Jordan. 3,000 Muslims were sent to confront a Roman and Arab coalition of somewhere between 10 and 15,000 men. The Muslim commanders fell one by one. Zayd ibn Haritha, the first commander, was killed in battle. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib picked up the standard and fought until both his arms were cut off. He was found with over 90 wounds on the front of his body. Abdullah ibn Rawaha, the third commander, fell next. The army was leaderless. A man named Thabit ibn Arqam grabbed the standard and turned to the nearest soldier. "You take it," he said. The nearest soldier was Khalid ibn al Walid. Khalid hesitated. He was a new convert. There were men here who had been Muslims for years, men who had sacrificed far more than he had. He said, "You are more deserving." Thabit said, "Not I, and none but you."
The men agreed. Khalid took the standard. What followed was not a victory in the conventional sense. Khalid could not defeat a force 4 times his size, but what he did was arguably more impressive. He reorganized the shattered army under fire. He launched fierce counterattacks that created the impression of fresh reserves arriving. He broke contact under pressure, one of the hardest maneuvers in all of warfare, and withdrew in good order with minimal additional casualties. When the army returned to Medina, some threw dust at the soldiers and called them the runaways. The Prophet stopped them. He said, "They have not run, they will fight again." And then he said something that would echo across the Muslim world. Khalid is the sword of Allah. From that day forward, that was his title. Saif Allah, the sword of Allah.
He fought in over 100 battles. He lost none of them. And when he finally died, he wept. Not from pain, but because it wasn't on the battlefield. This is the story of Khalid ibn al Walid, the man the Prophet himself named the Sword of Allah. At the Battle of Yamama, Khalid faced the deadliest force the Muslim army had ever met, 40,000 fighters loyal to a false prophet. The first charge failed. His soldiers broke and ran. It was the women of the camp who stopped them. Mothers, wives, daughters, striking the retreating men with tent poles, holding up their children, shouting, "Fight for your families."
Determination. The men turned back. In 30 minutes, Khalid rebuilt the army's formation. The second charge finished what the first could not. From there, he marched into empires. He took on Persia, a civilization 12 centuries deep, and broke it city by city. He led 9,000 men across 5 days of waterless desert no commander had dared cross, and brought every one of them out alive. Then came Yarmuk. 150,000 Roman soldiers against 40,000 Muslims. For 6 days, Khalid held the line, absorbing wave after wave. On the 6th, he struck, drove the Roman cavalry off the field, then pinned their entire army against a ravine.
Oh, it remains one of the most complete victories in military history. And yet, this undefeated general never got a hero's death. Caliph Umar removed him from command. Afraid soldiers were crediting a man instead of God. Khalid accepted it without complaint. Years later, dying in bed, his body a map of scars from 100 battles, he said, "I have sought martyrdom in 100 battles. Why could I not have died in the field? I die like a camel dies, in bed." In shame,
he wanted a warrior's death. He got an old man's. But 14 centuries later, his name still echoes, not because of how he died, but because of what he gave everything for. Khalid spent his early years fighting for the wrong cause. The moment he turned that same courage towards something greater than himself, he became unstoppable. So ask yourself, what are you fighting for right now? And is it worth the sword you carry?